And who taught you to ride a horse? I mean, did you just get on?
I just grew up.
Just grew up on them?
Yeah, I grew up on horseback.
Did your grandfather have horses, or?
Oh yeah, and my grandparents too. And the old horse, my Uncle Darrell traded for a horse that my dad had broke and traded to his cousin, W.B. Welch, a gray horse. It really made a cutting horse. And by the time he was about 18 years old, my uncle traded for him and gave him back to me. And I rode him to a boy. He was 27, 8 years old, probably. But anyway, everybody always picking at me, a kid, you know, on that good old horse. He'd turn something back and I'd have to hit it and barely could ride him. And him and Jack was up against a sheep-proof fence and hold him a good little while. And that kind of put me to people to gather around, brag about what they'd seen him do. And he was famous in that country, you know, what they call a brag cutting horse. Yeah. And that kind of put me to wanting a cutting horse. And every time I'd break a bunch of colts, I'd pick me out a cutting horse, you know. And you know, then we'd ride them around the herd. Back then, all the pastures were bigger and the herds were bigger before the drought, and everybody ran a lot of cattle. And then, you know, you see people throw cattle up against the fence working now, and that's not the way to work cattle. You break up the fires and scatter them wide. But back then, you don't roundup you generally have roundup grounds that were clear. You never wanted to set the cows and calves next to a fence, because that fence would split them up and they'd get strung out too wide up and down that fence. And we'd ride what we called our herd horses around the roundup and work cattle. And sometime if you got one looking at a cow real good, the boss might take him and make cutting horse out of him. And back then there wasn't that many horses that was really cow. And one that was kind of special. You know, they'd be good enough that you could go ahead of cow and turn them around. But as far as working the cow and holding her, whether really trying to get back, Foy and Leonard rode real good horses. They had kept a thoroughbred remount stud by the name of he was by Tallwood. His name was Tallwood. And Scarver's had used him, and boy, he got cow horses. And Foy and Leonard kept him till he died, and they had some old half thoroughbred horses, could hardly run and really work a cow. And Foy had the best way of working cattle. His horses wouldn't push the cattle too much. They'd break parallel with the cow and stop parallel with the cow and turn 180. And I asked Foy about that one time, and he said, well, I like a horse to stop straight and turn straight because it doesn't scare a cow as bad. And said it doesn't take near as long to set and hold a cow a few turns as it does to get to running across the front of the roundup, like most of those guys would do.
Yeah.
And, and most of his cattle, he drove straight away. And I had to overcut most of the time. That's a boring job, but they always put a kid doing it. And I'd watch and forest cattle just come straight to the roundup. And somebody else go cutting in. I'd have to go out here and get the cattle and bring them to the cuts. But he really, and it set my style that really did do me good when I started cutting.